if you want, for old folks like me, you might want to make the slides a little bigger.
Okay,
Like,
so I need to put it, let me put it in presentation mode. There we go.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for reminding me. I just got into it. So, okay. All right. So again, we're here to help. So please feel free to reach out to us. This is what we do, and we're here to help. So let's. Oops, sorry. We're all in one slide. Let me get there. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. So we're talking about Zoom in this particular instance, but one of the things we realize is that, again, if we're talking about in cases of emergencies, your campus may have other synchronous meeting platforms. Zoom has been the most convenient and the most available. So we're kind of focusing on Zoom, but if you are using other synchronous meeting platforms for interacting with each other online and you want to use it for your students, you can. I say it with, be mindful that these are tools that were built really for business and enterprises. So a lot of what, services that you would try to have with your students that you might see with ConnectEd, for instance, would not necessarily be there. But the whole goal here is being able to having your students have access to you. And so any one of those platforms will allow for that. As you can see, we're seeing each other in a synchronous meeting, but be mindful of the fact that they may not have all the single sign-on integrations and things like that, but you can still provide service to your students using one of these platforms. It's not what we would say after hopefully we pass this crisis that you continue for student services. We really want you to focus on looking at the needs of student services and using the correct platform for that correct area, but it really can be of service if you are using any of the other platforms. Really, Zoom in its sense is this is what Zoom has to offer, right? They offer online meetings. It's a great tool for video webinars. As you can see, one of the benefits of Zoom, if you are doing workshop, you can have a lot of people in the room at the same time and set up in a workshop webinar style fashion as we're doing right now. So it's great for that. So maybe you can use that for things like new student orientations and things like that. That would be very helpful to be able to use your Zoom the subscription to offer a new student orientation and think about it that way. The conference calls, again, this is the focus on Zoom is really about business enterprises. Zoom does allow for a call-in option. So if the student, for some reason, their phone, their computer sound isn't available, you can call in using Zoom, and there's usually a phone number associated with Zoom, with your invitation that allows you to call into the system. And there's messaging and file sharing. So when you're in Zoom, as you can see, you can share your screen, and then you can also put into the chat a link to an actual document and have that open up on your side of the screen. So primarily when we're talking about student services, if we think about Zoom, as I mentioned, it's designed for business, but we're thinking about the translation of that to student services. And really what it comes down to is the ability to host a meeting and join a meeting, right? Those are the two options that it comes down to with Zoom. And with Zoom, it's usually about making a request on a calendar request or a calendar invite. So the things that you would have to be mindful of with student services is that if this is, for instance, a student needing help with something, let's say with financial aid, that would have to first be initiated through some sort of outreach with an email of some kind. Now, I know there are colleges who are integrating Zoom with SARS, and when it's done that way, you can then use it from a scheduling standpoint. But if it's not integrated, then you really would have to initiate the conversation, or the student would have to initiate the conversation with you before you can get to the point of where we're setting up hosting a meeting I'm sending you an invite so that you can join me into the meeting. So I want you to be mindful of that because it's not as smooth as if this is a part of a schedule, right? Where the student can go and find when your meetings are available in Zoom. That's not really how it's done unless it's integrated with a scheduler like SARS. And I know there are a few schools who've done that, but I don't know that many have. And then the other side of it is the student being able to join the meeting. Once that meeting is set up and that email is received, or if you can integrate with a calendar and it's on the calendar, joining of the meeting is fairly simple, as you guys, everyone who's joined this meeting has been able to do. You just click on the link and you join, and you get the option of either using your computer to hear audio, or you have the option of calling in. And then once you do that, you're in the meeting room when using Zoom, okay? Some of the features, as we're sitting in the room with you right now, that could be useful in student services once you're in there, is that a lot of the work would happen in that particular meeting. And what I mean by that is that outside of the recording of the meeting that is available, there is that this really focuses on that emergency session where the student needs to get something done and it's done and that's it. There's no recording of a holding on to a document in a document library and things like that. So again, be mindful if this is an ongoing situation with a student, you're not keeping a record of that. Like there's no notes of the past history of meeting with a student, with the exception of the recorded meetings. That's how you will find out about what has been happening. There's no carryover of the notes. I want you to be mindful of that. You have to think about what you're using it for when you're using it in student services. And I think the main part would be that immediate service, get that action done. You met with a student, you did this, you shared the screen, you discussed it, and that action is done. And the next time you have a meeting again, it will be something new, not necessarily a carryover, so that the documents are not necessarily there stored from a previous meeting. So the screen share option, as we are using right now, is available. The online video, one of the best features of Zoom, I would think, is a video component, especially this tiled layout where you can see everyone who's in the room. So if you're using it for a workshop, you can set it up that way. But again, you need to be mindful of what happens with workshops. So Zoom has their webinar component where we're not using it right now, we're using a regular Zoom room, but if you use a webinar component that allows for where the audience is not on screen and the moderator or the presenter is the one who's speaking, that might be a better option, but to use for your webinars or new student orientation, because then you don't want to have hundreds of people on screen, trying to all talk at the same time. So using the Zoom option for webinars may be the better bet. The call-in option, we've talked about that. There's a mobile option for Zoom that works really well. Again, in emergencies, we're talking about getting that information, verifying as a student right there and then, and getting that work done. So it works for both devices, Android and iOS. The chat feature for Zoom is within the meeting. It's not outside of the meeting. So it's not about, you can log in and have a chat conversation without being in a meeting room. Chat is available within the meeting as we see and as you guys are using right now. So be mindful of that. And then the calendar integration. I'm not quite sure if the calendar integration, well, let me put it this way. You would have to think about how you would integrate it, because I know typically you don't integrate with students' calendars. That's not what you normally do in terms of setting up the meeting. So you would have to think about if that would be something we'd use, or if it would be an exchange of conversation between you and the student when it comes to how do I set up that meeting with you. And then recording the meeting is a really good way in terms of getting a history and an accurate account of what happened and what took place. So those are the primary features with Zoom that we think can be of benefit in an emergency situation when you're trying to offer student services using Zoom. So the demo itself, when we talked about the demo, really the demo is this, is us in this meeting room right now, talking about Zoom, seeing the features and the components of Zoom. So I think what I'm going to do is stop sharing, right? And then kind of discuss, maybe open it up for questions. We have a few minutes, open it up for questions about if you have particular questions about aspects of Zoom that you think you can use as student services, and see how that can be configured in an emergency situation. And I haven't been seeing the chat. I know people have been talking, so I don't know if there were questions in there.
Yeah, we can actually go in. So I answered as much as I could. So sorry if I haven't gotten to your question. Okay, so when recording the meeting, does it keep the chat as well? So yes, so everything is recorded under the file. So if you are the one inviting those into that Zoom meeting, you will automatically find a file. There's two ways of accessing Zoom. You can either download the actual application on your desktop, on your computer, and it's almost like an app inside of your computer. You can access it that way. If not, you can also just go to zoom.com and enter it in that manner as well. So you would have to log in. Let's see, if embedded in Canvas LMS, does it automatically create an attendee list? I haven't personally used it inside of Canvas. Anybody on my team that's on this call, do you know if it can automatically create an attendee list and how long the attendee has been in the meeting if it's through the Canvas LMS?
I don't believe any of that is provided as data from the call. When you're in the call, there's a participant list you can always see, but it won't, after the call, provide you with a list of who attended and how long they were in there.
Perfect. Thank you, Helen. Awesome. And then how exactly do we set up Zoom, set up a Zoom meeting? Perfect. I can actually show you that really quickly. It shouldn't take too long. So I'm signed on to my account here. And what I'll do is just show you here. It'll give me options, right? So this is my profile. And it'll tell you, do you want to schedule a meeting, join a meeting, or host the meeting, right? So if I wanted to schedule a meeting, select that option. And then once you're here, you can choose to plug or connect your calendar so that that'll appear on your Chrome calendar, Outlook, whichever calendar you need. Here you can actually title the meeting. Maybe it's checking about financial aid. I don't know if I can spell. And then you can include a description. And then of course you would select the date and the time. You can select how long you want that meeting to last for. So it could actually be only 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 45 minutes, or however long you need it to be, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Of course, you could set up the time zone difference, and you can even set up the option to have the meeting continue to show every Thursday, every Friday. If it's a recurring meeting, you can actually choose how often, weekly, monthly, or daily. And then of course, how often you want it to repeat. And then you can even set this up to a certain amount of occurrences. So if you know for a fact you won't have that biweekly meeting after 2 months, you can just set those dates accordingly so that it won't continue to show up on your calendar. You can also set these options. So if you have registration requirements, you can actually click this and it'll prompt those who are wanting to enter your meeting to have to register first. And then you can also set passwords if that's what you need before they can enter a meeting. And then of course the videos, who can turn on their videos, participants or hosts. So you can actually show if they have to turn on the video themselves or if it automatically will turn on when they're entering that meeting. And then this is a feature that a lot of people were asking about. Can you call in, right? So this is a very important feature that Zoom does have. So you can call or you can just use the link to go into the meeting the way that you guys did that today. So a lot of times when you get invited to a Zoom meeting, you'll notice just both options. That's because whoever created that meeting selected that both are available for those who are attending. And lastly, meeting options that are extras. So enable join before host. That means if you want to let that guest enter your meeting by clicking that link. And even if you're not there in your room, if you're not ready to go, they can still join your room even before you arrive. So that's what that option means. And then of course, new participants upon entry, enable waiting room. The waiting room would just be a screen, and the student or person who's waiting would have to just sit with the white screen that says information about the Zoom platform until you're ready to join them. Once you're ready to join them, that screen will disappear, and then they'll find themselves inside of the actual room that we're in, where we can see each other in their videos. And then of course, you can also assign someone else to be a host with you, and by including their email there, that will send them an email alerting them that they've been included as an alternative host. And then all you do is save, and that will lock that meeting for future access. Does that help? Okay. On the left side, you can see other options, right? So if you're hosting a webinar or a meeting, you want to make sure you're under the right tab.
I had a question about recording. Specifically, is there a way to do, because I know like if you're trying to do captions during the actual meeting, that you have to, like it says assign someone to type, or I will type, but is there a way to, how do you do captions for the recording, or how do you do captions that nobody has to type?
Yeah, that's a good question. Every time I've been in a Zoom meeting where there's captioning, they've actually hired an outside captioner to come into that session, right? So it doesn't have a built-in option. You actually have to hire someone outside, from an outside agency, to join your meeting. The day that they join, they're then assigned as the live captioner for that session. And anybody on my team can—
I heard somebody on the Laney FAS mentioned that faculty administrators and staff mentioned that you can have the recording, like turn on captioning for the recording where it happens automatically, even if it's not captioning in the meeting itself, but the recording of the meeting could be captioned without having to type. Is that correct?
Oh.
The recording, if you do a cloud recording, when you get notification from Zoom that your recording is ready, on that page with the recording in the right-hand column will be an auto-generated transcript. It's usually fairly accurate, but if what you're asking is how do you get captions while you're doing the call, there is no other way except what Jessica described, where you hire a live captioner. The only way to get that transcript set of captions is afterward, when the recording has been rendered.
So in terms of after the recording has been rendered, though, if I send that to this, let's say I'm teaching a class and I send it to the students, so like in case it, you know, so they didn't have to record it or take very detailed notes, will they be able to access that? And will that meet the requirements of the ADA in terms of videos being captioned? Because I guess once I'm sending the recording, then it becomes a video.
They are auto-generated, so they are not perfect. But they're better than the YouTube version where everything is just one long run-on sentence. This is actually set up so that each speaker has their own line of text in the caption, so it's a little bit better. And I actually am not sure whether you're able to go in as the host and clean up that transcript. Stacy, do you know?
To clean up the sorry, say that again. I was answering. Oh, Michelle, go ahead.
I never use those for actual class recordings. I only use YouTube, so I've never explored whether I can go clean up the Zoom transcript.
I can speak to that. This is Michelle. I'm sorry, I just jumped in, so apologize if I'm repeating anything, but the cloud recording transcript,
yes, that's what we're talking about.
It is editable. It definitely is. Are we talking about using Zoom Live for class sessions? Is that what this question is?
That as well.
Yeah, so if you're using Zoom Live for a class session, you can go in and request captioning as long as it's done 5 days in advance, and they will provide a live captioner through TechConnect. So I can get that link and put it in the chat.
Oh, that would be great. Great. And that's free?
Well, it costs the system, but it's free to you.
Yes, and it's it's really it's provided as an accommodation for students who require it.
Okay, so it's not just, so for example, if I show video in the class, you have to have captions whether or not there's somebody in the class who requires it. But if there's nobody who actually asks for it, then
What you want to do, Irina, is have your class alert you at least 5 days ahead that there is if somebody in your class, I think people need to mute themselves. You would want to have the students let you know they need a live captioner for this class that you're going to do in Zoom. Then request it.
Great. And then you're going to put the comments in TechConnect. Well, that's great because I'm also a DSPS counselor, so I can let the instructors know.
Hey, Bonnie, since you're the host of the meeting, could you go ahead and mute everyone?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So again, today we're talking about Zoom within Student Support Services as an emergency tool. There will be another session that's talking more clearly about instruction, correct? And using Canvas and all of the other tools. So if you have questions directed towards instruction, please go ahead and feel free to attend our later sessions. The information is or will be posted in our chat as well. Anybody else have questions? Student services.
Yeah. Add something to it based on some of the questions that I'm seeing, and again with regards to student services, I really want everyone to be very mindful in terms of student services, in terms of how you use Zoom for student services, because the questions are sort of asking about how do you get around to certain things that, you know, like keeping a list of the participants outside, a recording of the participants and all of that. And those are the things that you need for student services. So if your campus has access to ConnectEd, you may want to investigate that for student services because it's designed specifically for that, right? If you don't, then you look at something like Zoom in order to provide the emergency services, because what I would hate to see is that you do have the thing that you're asking for, but you're using something else. If you don't have it, then this would work for you in a useful way to be able to provide services to your students right away. So be mindful of that for student services. And as Jessica said, this afternoon there is a session that really gets into that. That's why you have Helen and Michelle and they who are really going into talking about how to use it in the classroom and how have it work for the work that you're doing in the classroom. Okay.
I see a question that was posted. Please clarify for waiting rooms if we were trying to allow students to do walk-ins for the day, or is it not possible?
To be honest, again, this is kind of going back to what I was saying. This is one of those things where I would have to sort of investigate to see what is possible with Zoom's waiting room. I'm not quite sure the full functionality of that waiting room to see if it can do what you guys are thinking or hoping for a student services office. So that's going back to what I'm saying about thinking about using the tool that's built for the tool, right? And again, recognizing that you might not have it, then you use something like Zoom to accommodate students until you can have the tool that you really should be using with students. There was a question about the informed consent that happens in Cranium Cafe, and should we use it with Zoom as well? From a practicing integrity standpoint, yes, you need to have an informed consent for student services and counseling. Can you use it in Zoom? I don't believe Zoom has it built in. So it's not about should you use it, you should. That is part of what you need to do when you're providing online services to students when it comes to FERPA and things like that. You would have to figure out how to incorporate that and make that a seamless and easy thing if you're setting it up as a Zoom appointment with Zoom. Okay. Is there a document sharing function in Zoom in counseling appointments? You also have to sign students' forms. You can share documents by posting, like let's say you did a Google Doc and you post the URL, you can click on it. In terms of electronic signing, I don't believe Zoom has that functionality. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
No, they do not.
Okay, so you won't be able to do that way with Zoom.
There is, so Bonnie, if I can jump in, sorry. There is an option in the chat if you all want to go in, just where you're typing your questions. There's a button on the right side of the chat little box, and that says files. So if you click on it, you can have an example of that. It'll actually go into your desktop and pull from your documents, and then you can share that way. If not, you can also use share screen where you're pulling up the document, the student can follow you, but there's no direct back and forth interaction on the document. It would be more showing.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I think we can wrap up if there's no more questions. Jessica and I, again, we will be available to answer any questions. You can start by sharing your questions to support@cvc.edu. And you can also contact us directly, and we will try to answer as many questions as we can and try to be a service to you all as much as we can in terms of helping you put your services online. We're here with you, and we really want to work with you to ensure that you can get what you need in such a short space of time, because we know this is coming sort of fast and furious from colleges asking to get their services put online as well as their classes put online. So we're here to support you, and we thank you all for participating today. We will be sending you a copy of the recording. You can get a copy. We have to get it closed captioned, so it's going to take a minute. But we'll make this available to everyone and anyone who wants it. Okay.
Perfect. And then just a little shout out, I think Michelle just posted, there will be a Confer Zoom representative on the 3 o'clock webinar. So if you guys want to ask more specific questions that we couldn't answer, please attend that session at 3 p.m.
And if you have questions after around Zoom, not specific for Bonnie and Jessica, they're going to know their stuff. But if you're just saying, like somebody just said, is there a webinar on how to use Zoom as a first time? Do a Google search. There's all kinds of stuff that Zoom has created. There's stuff other institutions have created. There's a lot of stuff out there that'll help you if you think later, oh, wait, I don't know how to, log in or whatever. So that is a resource to keep in mind as well.
Okay, great. Thank you guys, and hope to talk to you soon.